Okay, welcome to the video. Sig Guy here. In this video, I'm going to show you how to install the Tyrant Designs rear slide cap for the Sig Sauer P365. Now, depending on how old your 365 is, there are two different striker designs. So I'm going to demonstrate on these two different P365s, one with each style striker in it. So with that, let's get started. Whenever working on our firearms, the first thing we're going to do is make sure we're working on a clear and safe firearm. We don't need any desk pops, okay? So the first thing we're going to do is remove our magazine. We're going to lock our slide to the rear. We're going to physically and visually check to make sure there's no round in the chamber, no magazine. Check our breech face, look away. Do the same thing again. Chamber, magazine, breech face. We are working on a clear and safe firearm. So before we can replace our rear slide cap, we're going to have to remove our slide from our grip module. So we're going to lock our slide to the rear. We're going to rotate our takedown lever and release our slide. We'll put our grip to the side, and then we'll even remove our guide rod assembly and our barrel. As you can see here, I have two different slides, and each slide has a different style striker in it. Okay, what I mean by that is the striker housing was redesigned. So the portion that interacts with our rear slide cap, this black plastic piece of our striker housing, there's two different styles, okay? This is the newer style over here, and this is the older style over here. So I'm going to be demonstrating both so to cover no matter which style striker you have in your 365. So on our old style, basically there's a slit behind it, okay, this portion right behind it. It allows us to put a screwdriver in there and basically pull it forward, okay? You can see that's kind of spring-loaded. So basically all you did on the older style is pull that forward and then slide your cap up and out, just like that. Very easy to disengage. Sig had a problem where the slide caps were coming down by themselves when people were shooting them, so they redesigned the housing, making it a little bit more difficult for that slide cap to come off. And before we move on to the newer style, we'll show you how to reassemble the old style really quick. You basically just push it in as far as you can with your finger. Your slide cap has on the edges here. That portion there slides into the notch on each side of your slide. So we need to push in our striker housing far enough to where we can get our slide cap started in that groove, just like that. And then we're going to push this up until we hear it click and lock into place. So the newer design, not a big fan of it. It does improve the design, so that's always a good thing, but it is a lot more difficult to remove your rear slide cap, especially if this is your first time. And also, if you're not careful, you can damage the housing. If you've done this a few times, the more you do it, the more it's going to get damaged because you're basically jamming a screwdriver in there and prying on that plastic piece, okay? So in order for our slide cap to release, basically our striker housing has to go forward. And the new improved design, even though there's a slit behind it, I can put a screwdriver in there all day long and try to pry it forward. Oops. Try to pry it forward. It will not go forward because it's already up against the edge of my slide there, okay? So what I need to do is get my screwdriver in on the side of it and bend it in towards the center into this channel right here, and then pull it forward, and then my slide cap will release, okay? So this is not easy. So if you get frustrated, just put it down, walk away, cool off for a second, come back and give it a try. So what I'm doing the whole time is I'm using my finger on my slide cap here. I'm basically forcing it off, so that way as soon as it disengages, it moves, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my screwdriver here on the side. I'm going to push it in towards the center, and I'm going to rotate my screwdriver around towards the back of it and pry it down into the center of that channel, okay? As I'm pushing with my finger, and the slide cap will come out as soon as that housing is cleared from it, okay? And then I can pull it out the rest of the way just like that. Let's talk about a few things here while we have our rear slide cap off. It's a lot easier to disassemble things if you actually know what they look like and how they interact. So this center portion here in the center here, the circle black part, that's our striker housing. And then this is the tab that we're pulling in towards the center in order to push that further in, okay? So depending on how jacked up this tab gets, you might need to replace it. And the only way to replace the housing is to buy a complete striker assembly, okay? So the only striker assembly that you can buy is the most current version. So there is no more old style and all that stuff. So anytime you buy a striker, which everything's backward compatible, so when you buy the new striker, it has the new style striker housing in it, okay? So also, if you have an older 365, like a guy posted on Facebook last week, he was at the range shooting and his back cap actually came down partially. He took a picture of it, posted on Facebook, asked if it had happened to anybody else. So I asked him what style striker did he have in his 365. So he wasn't sure what I was talking about. So I referred him to one of my other videos on YouTube, and he determined he had the older style striker housing in his older 365, which obviously, before they made the changes, had the old style in there. So it's just as easy as buying another new striker, okay? Everything's backwards compatible, like I said. So that striker will fit in the old style slides, and then you'll have the updated design to where your slide cap won't come down, which is pretty important when this is a EDC type of firearm, okay? And lastly, when we put our slide cap back on, a lot of times from pulling our tab in for so long, taking this apart, or it gets all boogered up, it doesn't want to go back into its normal position, which is as far to the side as possible. So when we put our slide cap back on there, you might need to take a little flat tip screwdriver and push it back towards the side, so that way it's all the way out of the channel, okay? Next, we're going to install the Tyrant Designs rear slide cap into the slide here. So on our slide cap, we have two edges. This edge here, it's got a little notch on it, or a ridge, or whatever you want to call it. And this side here, same thing, okay? Those two edges go into the notches right here, and the one on this side. Okay, so we got to get our housing far enough in to where we can get those notches lined up with those grooves, and we can slide our cap up in there, okay? So this isn't very easy to do, especially your first time, and if you're doing it with your fingers are going to hate you afterwards by pushing in on this so hard with this thin edge here, okay? So the way that I do it now is I use a punch. I basically put it at about 10 o'clock, and I use that to push in on my housing. So to demonstrate really quick, you'll see I can push in my housing here, and it doesn't go any further than that, okay? So we got this notch, or excuse me, this groove or slit, the space in between my slide and my housing here. No matter how hard I push, it doesn't go any further than that. Your striker safety is right here. Mine's black, yours might be silver. You can see it's spring-loaded. Okay, so when we push in our housing and it doesn't go anymore, when we push it in our striker safety, you'll see that housing go forward. See that? Now that gap is closed up. So then we basically move this into the center and then push it even further forward, and that'll give us enough room to put our slide cap in, okay? So remember that striker safety has to go in when you start pushing in on your housing. So about 10 o'clock, this thicker portion here of the plastic, now I have this part here up against my chest. I'm pushing into my chest like that, and I'm pulling with my hand on the striker housing. So put your cap where it's easily accessible. I'm going to put that about 10 o'clock. And make sure you're careful this doesn't slide off and scratch your slide, okay? So I'm going to push it like that. Push in my striker safety there. Push in my striker safety. And I'm going to pull that tab in with my finger, and it's going to go in even more. Okay, just like that. I'm going to take my slide cap, get it started in those grooves. just like that. And get it going about halfway. Okay, now it's locked in there. So to recap, I basically pushed it on my housing with that punch, pushed it on my striker safety. It went in even more. Then I pulled that tab over to the center and into the channel. It went in even more, and that gave me enough room to get my slide. You can see those notches are quite a ways in. Right here. And the one on this side. Okay, so you got to get that housing in quite a bit before you can get those notches started. Okay. And then once you get that started in there halfway, basically just push it all the way up in there. You'll hear it click into place. And then like we mentioned earlier, this little portion of our striker housing really doesn't want to go back into its original spot, either because it's boogered up a little bit or just from bending it in for so long, okay? So basically we're just going to take something that's not going to damage it and push that back into place, okay? And that'll lock that into place, and that'll keep our slide cap from accidentally coming off. And there you have it. It's that easy to switch out your stock factory rear slide cap with the Tyrant Designs 365 rear slide cap. You can see they got their chevron design in there, their signature look there. It kind of really finishes it off. I have it actually on my AXG. I liked it so much I left it on my AXG. I mean, it's just plain back here with a regular slide cap, so it gives it a little bit more character back there. So those both for the 320 and the 365 I do have available on sigguy.com, as well as all kinds of factory parts. If you need any factory parts for your 365s, your 320s, or your classic series, and even MCX stuff now as well. Also, if you like this type of video content, there's a subscribe button right down here. If you could subscribe to the channel, I'd really appreciate it. As always, thank you for watching, and have a good day.